Ladies and gentlemen, what is happening? Welcome back to 182 News. This is episode number 3, and I am your host, Poppin' Curbs. As promised at the end of episode number 2, today's episode is Tom time. We are going to discuss a lot of stuff going on in Tom's world, from the fact that he sold the rights to his Blink songs, to what's going on with the Angels Airwaves record, Angels Airwaves tour, and I might even touch base on Ilan's band a little bit, The New Regime. First, we need to start with a couple quick updates on Blink-182. So last week, they actually added 2 new festival shows. So again, looks like they're sticking to the festival route so far. Though we had 4 festival shows a week ago, now we have 6. So they definitely are slowly adding shows. Like I said before, this is the time to start releasing those. The tickets need to be sold. So they added July 15th Ottawa Blues Fest in Canada. So Canada gets another show. I've already seen some people that are stoked about that. And they also added on June 28th, they are playing Summerfest in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So 6 Blink shows total so far. I'm thinking surely we will get some more coming up pretty soon, and I'm praying maybe they add some smaller shows in between to make it worth their time getting the crew out and everybody traveling across the country. All right, so let's start getting into what is going on with Tom. Okay, so on January 7th, some big news came out, and it was that a company called Hipgnosis acquired Tom DeLonge's catalog of 157 songs. Now, a lot of people saw that right away and didn't even really know what that meant, don't even know how that's going to affect anything. Does that mean Tom sold out? Does that mean he's done with Blink? The statement that Tom came out with at the time was, "This is now a perfect opportunity for me to not only celebrate my past, but also to give me the foundation to create more music for decades to come." Okay, let me try and make some sense out of this for you guys. I would assume what he sold is going to be the rights to streaming and album sales numbers from those songs. So you have to remember, Tom is still 1/3 owner of Blink, the company, the corporation. He still has a say in things. He's a smart businessman. He never signed off that part away from him. And so one of the articles said it also included Angels and Airwaves. I don't think that's accurate because it said 157 songs, and Angels has a ton of songs, and on top of all the Blink stuff, it would have been way more than that. I do wonder if maybe it included Boxcar, but I really think it was just the old Blink stuff, which was essentially Cheshire Cat through Dogs Eating Dogs. A lot of people were saying, well, Tom's going broke. He spent all his money funding spaceships, trying to build a time capsule, blah, blah, blah. Again, let me try and make a little bit of sense of this. It's not the end of the world, in my honest opinion. Keep in mind, bands these days make a lot of money from touring. They make a lot of money from merch. This goes back to even on the Neighborhoods tour when Travis kind of had a little jab at Tom, saying he thought maybe the only reason he came back was to get that touring money. That is why. This is where bands make a ton of money. So I did some research on this. The average that Hipgnosis pays per catalog is $15 million. So Hipgnosis is a company that acquires songs from songwriters, essentially. And their hope is that they can continue getting the stream sales and the rights to the music for years to come, hundreds of years. People are going to be listening to all the small things in 100 years, 150 years, and if they're playing it somewhere, Hipgnosis, I think, will get that money instead of Tom. So Travis can still get his, Mark still gets his. Essentially, what I believe happened is Tom sold his third of the streaming rights or sales rights to his Blink-182 songs. So they, on average, pay $15 million per catalog. So they come up to you one day and they say, hey, how about I give you $20 million for the rights to all of your songs? That's a lot of money right off the bat. And keep in mind, that's an average. So, they may have offered some small band $500,000 for their catalog, and they may have offered Tom 35 or 40 million. I don't know the exact number, but say we're going off of the averages, $15 million is a decent chunk of change when you consider you're only getting paid per stream. There's no way they're getting anywhere close to that per year. And so when I was looking into this, I was trying to find comps on this. What other bands have done this? How much were they making? How valuable was their catalog at the time? One of the bigger bands that's halfway comparable to Blink that did this is The Offspring. So The Offspring, a couple years ago, they sold their entire catalog for $35 million, okay? So it wasn't Hypnosis, it was a different company, but they came to them and they said, okay, we will give you $35 million for the rights to all of your songs. And Offspring probably did some calculations of what they were getting annually off those and said, hell yeah, I'll take it right now. So when I dug into this a little bit further, The Offspring supposedly had an annual revenue of $3.1 million a year from streams and album sales. Okay, remember, bands make their money from touring and merch. From streams and sales, they had $3.1 million. Say the band sees 30% of this, and it's probably actually far less than that. There's so many middlemen in this. That's $232,000 per year each member was getting from streams and sales of their songs. So you're getting $232,000 a year, and that's per band member. And this company comes up to you and essentially says, I'll give you, in this scenario, $8.75 million right now for the rights to these songs, and you can still go tour and make money from that. You can still make money off of your own merch, on your own VIP meet and greets, whatever you want to do. And essentially, we will just take over getting the money you were going to be paid for streams and album sales. So you got to think about that. You're making $232,000 a year. So start adding that up. Couple years, $500,000. It takes 4 years to get to close to $1 million. And this company comes up to you and says, I'll give you $8.75 million cash right now. Yeah, that's pretty tempting. So to get an idea of just how tempting it is, if they were taking that annual $232,000, it would take them 37 years to recoup that same amount of money that they just got offered. So you can either take your little $232,000 a year for 37 years, and newsflash here, I don't know how old they are, but they're likely going to be dead. Or you can take $8.75 million straight cash and just be set forever. I'm not going to lie, I'd take the money. So before you start shitting on Tom, you got to think about that if you're in his shoes, okay? These are songs, he put in his work on these. He put in his time. He built an empire with Blink. But let's be honest, he doesn't play these songs anymore. This stuff's from 25 years ago. And as we all kind of know, Tom, at least in his mind, has definitely outgrown Blink. He doesn't want to play those songs anymore. He really doesn't want too much to do with them. I'm sure he's proud of them. But somebody comes in and says, yo, here's $20 million for what you were making, maybe $250,000 to $400,000 a year, if that. You can see how that would be kind of tempting. So let's back up a second before you hop on the bandwagon that Tom's going broke, he's blowing all his money, all that stuff. So to take this another step further, I did some calculations based on some of these streaming calculators I found for Spotify and Apple Music. These might be way off, but I do think it's probably halfway comparable, and you'll at least get the point I'm trying to make here. So when I'm doing these, Blink makes approximately, again, this is based on online streaming calculators, $6 million per year from streaming. Once again, there are a lot of middlemen in a corporation or company the size that Blink is, let's face it. And for reference, Mark even said back in the Cheshire Cat days, they were only getting a whopping $3 per CD, and that was in 1995. So in 1995, when they weren't jack shit at the time, they were sleeping on couches, just really grinding. They were getting paid $1 per album. And that's with hardly any middlemen. So imagine how minimal that amount is once you're huge. I mean, the label's getting a cut, the producer's getting a cut, everybody's getting a cut. So say they see $2 million out of that $6 million Blink does, and that's split three ways. And again, this is probably really, really high. That's $666K a year from streams, and that doesn't even begin to account for who knows what Scott Rayner gets. I don't know. Surely he gets something for Dude Ranch and Cheshire songs. Don't know what Skiba gets. Then you got to factor in producers, all of that stuff. So let's be honest. I wouldn't be surprised here if that number is $250,000 to $400,000 a year, as I mentioned earlier, and probably lower after taxes. So say they offered Tom $20 million for cash rights to that, it would take him 60 plus years to recoup that annually. So think about that. You can sit back and you can make $250,000, $300,000 a year, which is nice. But, all of us would take that. And that's a nice little nest egg to come back and sit on. Or someone comes up to you and says, I'll give you $20 million right now, and you can still make money off merch. You can still make money off touring or whatever agreement Tom has to let them continue touring. I mean, that's pretty tempting. So even, not to mention, he can still do whatever he wants with To the Stars, with Angels and Airwaves. I don't think Boxcar is involved in that. If he ever wanted to do any limited edition Boxcar vinyl or collections or special shows or something, he can still do all of that. So again, the point I'm trying to make here is I don't believe it was out of desperation at all. I think this company came to him, gave him an offer he could not refuse, and he said, heck yeah, I'll take all that money right now and still be able to do really what I'm doing right now anyway. It doesn't really change anything for Tom, to be honest. So, I mean, nobody knows exactly what's in the agreement. When I researched this, there's actually some where you kind of sell your rights, but you still get a lowered percentage. So, maybe instead of 10 cents per stream, you've agreed to get 3 cents and that company gets the other 7 cents. So there's ways that this works, and it gets extremely lawyery, and you can mix it any way you want, but it's tempting. So even if Tom, some people say, well, he needed the money for To the Stars or To the Stars Academy. Even if he did, who cares? He's earned that right. He earned that money. So say he sold it for $20 million and he needed 2 of it to instantly put back into To the Stars and To the Stars Academy to keep that going. I don't see anything wrong with that. That's his choice. And this is what he's currently passionate about. So if you were able to sell something you did 25 years ago for a pretty penny and be able to continue doing what you're wanting to do right now and what you love right now, that's a pretty nice trade-off in my opinion. So I don't see the point in shitting on Tom for this at all. But I did want to discuss that. That's something that came up at the beginning of the year, and a lot of people didn't see it right away because everybody was like, what the fuck is hypnosis, or what does this even mean? And to an extent, I do think it's a bit of a final stamp of Tom and Blink. I don't know what the agreement is, but I would assume it's at least for all of his previous work, and I don't know if it would cover any future work. But in my opinion, I do think it might be a final stamp on Tom and Blink, at least as far as studio albums go. Again, he could hop on stage and tour and make money off that, and it's probably no big deal. But that is some major news coming from Tom. Nobody saw that coming. So Tom no longer owns the rights to his music catalog, which, from what we can gather, is essentially all of his Blink music. So that's a big deal. Certainly worth talking about, and certainly something I wanted to discuss. All right, let's switch gears to Angels and Airwaves. So, as we discussed in episode 1, 2019 was a huge year for Angels and Airwaves. They were finally playing shows again for the first time since 2012. They released Rebel Girl. They released Kiss and Tell. Tom was back. Everybody was enjoying the shows. And of course, in the back of people's minds, we're wondering when the hell this new album is actually going to come out. So, in order to get us fully up to date, I think I need to go back just a tad to kind of paint the picture on where we are right now. So a little over a year and a half, 2 years ago, Tom had mentioned, as he often does on Instagram and random comments here and there, that he wanted to go back to his fast-paced punk rock roots with the next Angels Airwaves EP or album. Now, he also mentioned that it would be based around Strange Times. So if you don't know what Strange Times is, it's one of his franchises underneath the To the Stars company. So To the Stars is Tom's main company, and underneath that, almost like a little umbrella, are several different franchises. So there's the Poet Anderson. That's technically what the Dreamwalker album was kind of based around. The Of Nightmares EP was based around Poet Anderson. You have the Secret Machines franchise. That has fiction books, non-fiction books. That is what the Chasing Shadows EP was meant to accompany. That is what the Unidentified History Channel series is kind of underneath that umbrella. And then one of the other franchises they had is Strange Times. So Strange Times is kind of based around a group of kids in San Diego, and it's really cute. They have one book out on it. It's kind of a cute little immature ghost story. I read it. It's pretty solid. A lot of Tom humor in there, obviously, but one thing that I think has changed the outlook of at least that thought process is at some point in the past year or so, To the Stars actually sold Strange Times to TBS. So first off, congrats to Tom and the To the Stars team on that. That is a huge deal. So I'm really anxious to see what TBS ends up doing with it. I don't know if it's going to be kind of a raunchy cartoon or if it's just going to be a movie or what. But I believe the decisions on that are now in TBS's hands. So obviously that is going to change the thought process behind making this new Angels release focused around some sort of Strange Times film or cartoon or something. So again, that was about a year and a half, 2 years ago when Tom was first kind of starting to get back into the music groove. And so I don't think at this point it's going to be based around anything related to Strange Times. I think the fast-paced punk rock roots that he had in mind at the time probably would have tied in pretty well with kind of this small punk rock kid cartoon with these raunchy little characters running around raising hell. But at this point, I mean, we've got Rebel Girl and Kiss and Tell. They don't really fit the Strange Times theme to me at all. So I think it's safe to say that that's not going to be based around Strange Times. So we had Rebel Girl come out. We've had Kiss and Tell come out. And initially, when Rebel Girl first came out, Tom was saying that the first half of this album was done. And so he was saying that the first half of the album was done. They were going to do that little tour, and then he was going to film a movie. And the movie was actually going to be titled the same thing that the album was going to be titled. And then after the movie, they were going to finish the second half of the album, and then it would be done, and they were going to go on this grand tour that would finally tie in all of the things he's wanting to do. He's envisioning these arena tours where they're playing, the Dreamwalker animations as they're playing Dreamwalker songs. It's kind of a transmedia experience. It's neat, and Tom, as usual, is thinking big, but at this point, he was saying half of the album was done when Rebel Girl was out. Now, Rebel Girl, it's almost been a year since Rebel Girl dropped. It dropped in April, and here we are towards the end of February. So we have 2 songs in the past basically year from Tom. And what scared me about saying the first half was done and we're going to get back to it. As we know, Tom tends to kind of take his time on this stuff and can kind of drag it out, and it can take a while. I'm confident it is going to come out, but we might just have to wait a little bit longer. So they do the tour. I don't think they're filming any movie right now. So I don't know if that movie fell through. I don't know when he's planning on filming it. Still not completely sure what it is. I don't think it's the Poet Anderson live action. I don't think it's Strange Times anymore. I don't think it's anything to do with Secret Machines. They're kind of doing the unidentified thing. The other franchise he has is Cathedrals of Glass. That's actually a book. That's actually an amazing book, by the way. I'm looking forward to the second release of that. But at this point, it's kind of up in the air what this film he was even talking about is. Who knows what it would be called? So I'm actually kind of hoping that whole game plan has dropped. I don't really want Tom to feel like he has to tie this music to a film or that theme. I just want him to make the music he wants to make and release it as it is. So he was saying half the album was done. Now, one thing that I have heard recently, somewhat recently, about 2 or 3 months ago, I heard some podcasts from Ilan. I've heard 2 from Ilan, and then one with Ilan Rubin. I think AVA Movement had Ilan Rubin on, which was a fascinating interview. You should listen to it. It's on their YouTube as well. Now, this is 2 or 3 months ago. This is 6, 7 months after Tom has already said that half of the album is done. And when they were asking Ilan and Aaron separately, they had both said that only 3 songs were done. And 2 of those were Kiss and Tell and Rebel Girl. So Tom saying half the album is done almost a year ago. Here we are 3, maybe 4 months ago at this point. And Ilan and Aaron are both saying, no, we only have 3 songs. And 2 of them are already released, and they actually said that the third one might be revisited at this point, because I think it was Aaron even said it was significantly worse, or at least the least favorite of the 3. So Rebel Girl was better. The Kiss and Tell single that wasn't a single was better. So that kind of scared me when I heard that 2 or 3 months ago. Here's Tom saying half the album's done. I'm thinking, okay, we're going to get this somewhat soon, hopefully. And then both of them are saying, now we only had 3 songs done. Now, done versus demos and all of that is a completely different story. Maybe they have tons of song ideas. They just need to polish them up. We're not in the room. We don't really know. But recently, Tom has posted pictures in the studio. They had the little break. They canceled the January shows. So the last we've heard from Tom is essentially he's hoping to be done by this spring. This is spring 2020. Couple months. I do think he's probably working on this quite a bit. He's posted several pictures really in the past 3 or 4 weeks that they're working on it pretty hard. Even an hour ago, he tweeted that it's almost done. So I'm hoping, surely to God, they're at least making some progress on this, and that I don't think it's going to be out by spring, but I'm hoping maybe it can line up with late summer or a fall release. We shall see. Now, one thing that has already been teased, and we're going to touch base on the documentary here in a bit, but there was a documentary tease, and in that is a clip of a new Angels Airwaves song called Time Bomb. Tom released the name of it in the description of the post. And that was 2 months ago at this point. So over 2 months ago. So everybody's wondering where the hell Time Bomb is, and I'm actually also wondering if that was that third song that was done 3 or 4 months ago that was supposedly the only 3 they had done. And it's going to be interesting to see when that actually comes out. You know, as I mentioned before, Angels has some shows coming up this summer. Maybe they're trying to push it closer to that to kind of build up some hype around that. But it's going to be interesting to see. I can't wait to hear it. So the last we know in regards to the new Angels Airwaves album is Tom's definitely working on it. Ilan is working on it. Ilan Rubin is the one producing, engineering it. I believe David Kennedy is going to be involved. I'd actually like to see Matt Rabano become a full-blown member of Angels Airwaves at this point. I don't think he officially is. He's just a touring bassist, but I would like his input on bass because he's a badass bass player. So the hope is album done by spring, hopefully released shortly after. These days, especially being an independent company, although they are signed to Rise Records, so I don't know if there's going to be pressure from them to finally get it out or to hurry this up, but they can get that out pretty quick once the final mixes and all of that stuff are in. So as far as Angels and Airwaves goes, I do think we will get an album this year, which is going to be awesome. If I was a betting man, I'm going to say probably closer to fall, just knowing how Tom kind of works with these promises. So if anything new comes up on that, we'll be on top of it. But for now, the hope is Tom is going to get this stuff done before they get busy with these new shows and he gets preoccupied with something else that To the Stars is doing. So the next thing with Angels and Airwaves that we need to talk about, as I hinted a couple minutes ago, is this documentary. So Peter McKinnon, who is apparently a very famous photographer, videographer, I did not know who he was at the time, but as soon as they announced this dude was filming with them, traveling with them, I started following him on Instagram. He has millions of followers, and I was just like, holy shit, this dude does take some really fucking cool pictures of trees and lakes and nature. So he's a pretty cool dude. So he's been in there as soon as they started writing new stuff. He's been there with a camera. He was traveling with them to some of the shows. I've seen people post pictures and he's on stage in the background with a camera. So this documentary, especially for hardcore Tom fans, should be really, really fucking cool. I'm assuming it is going to tell the story of basically why he chose to get back into music, how he was inspired, the writing process for this album. I mean, it should be an amazing behind the scenes look into an aspect of the songwriting and creation process and just Tom's mind that so many of us are so interested in and we very rarely truly get to see. So they have not given a specific date on this other than it's coming this year. This was teased on December 30th. The music being played during the tease was Time Bomb, which I referred to earlier. That is what I assume is the next Angels and Airwaves single coming out, although at this point it's been almost 3 months, so hopefully sooner rather than later. This documentary, again, is probably going to be super, super awesome for hardcore Angels and Airwaves and Tom fans. Again, no clue when it's coming, other than it's supposedly coming this year, so definitely looking forward to that. The next thing with Angels and Airwaves is they had some shows. Actually, they had a winter stretch that was scheduled to be played in January, and really like 2 days before, maybe even a day before the first show, they basically canceled the entire stretch, which I thought that was kind of odd. But apparently Tom was suffering from an upper respiratory infection, so kind of hard to sing when you've got that going on. The good thing is pretty much instantly they had rescheduled most of these, so they've all been rescheduled. I think there might have been one in DC that didn't get rescheduled, but that may have changed since then. But the majority of them were instantly rescheduled, most at the same venue, and those are all now happening May through June of this summer. So Angels is definitely playing some shows this summer. They essentially start in May, and as of now, they're going through June 6th, which is the Bunbury Festival in Cincinnati. I'm actually going to try to go to that. I got to figure out what day it is. I mentioned before festivals aren't my thing, but if Blink's not going to be anywhere near me and Angels aren't going to be anywhere near me, I might have to break my own little rule here and drive a little bit further just to get some Angels and Airwaves in my life this summer. But it's exciting. They're definitely going to be playing this summer. They just added 2 more shows to the previously announced shows. So June 2nd in Virginia is new. June 3rd in Maryland is new. And just the other day, when they listed all of these, they tweeted out all summer shows are now on sale. So I don't think there's going to be a ton more shows added at this point. I think they're pretty much set. One thing I did notice is the graphic that Tom put on his Instagram. There are 2 shows, May 1st and June 6th. That's the very beginning and the very end of this little mini tour that say TBA. So maybe there's 2 more shows that are going to be announced. I would assume geographically they're going to be close to the locations that they're playing just the day before or day after those. So we shall see. Obviously, hope something would be released by then. All of this might magically line up with what Tom is saying, have this done by spring. They get on the road, first show May 1st, tour this summer, and we'll get the new album and everything will be awesome in Angels and Airwaves land. So definitely looking forward to that. Keep up the good work, Tom, making music. We're all excited for it. Can't wait to see what comes out of that. Obviously, if anything changes, we will be right on top of it and here to discuss it. The last thing I want to touch base on is Ilan Rubin, who I really dig. Ilan. He came in, he actually toured Love Part 2. Adam Willard laid down the drums on Love Part 2, but Ilan came in and toured it. So he has since been a member of Angels and Airwaves, and if you like The Dreamwalker, that is all Ilan Rubin written all over it. Ilan came in, really challenged Tom to push this in a new direction, and that is what Tom wanted. He did not want to make Love 1 and Love 2 again. They were starting to sound too similar. Ilan is basically a musical prodigy. The dude plays every instrument. He played on Warped Tour when he was 13. He plays in Nine Inch Nails. And the main band that he is in is called The New Regime. This is his own band, his own project. And one thing I wanted to touch base with on this, if you don't know, they, and the royal they, it's basically just Ilan, but he is coming out with a new album on March 6th. So, if you caught Angels and Airwaves on the last tour, most of those shows were being opened by The New Regime. So, part of what was going on there is Ilan, he was getting ready to promote this new album. He signed to a record deal. Tom, all of a sudden, for the first time in 7 years, said, "Hey, I want to tour." And Ilan said, "Well, I have to tour, so how do we make this work?" And the decision was made for The New Regime, which is Ilan, to open for Angels and Airwaves, and then right after his set, switch duty to become the Angels and Airwaves drummer, which was really fucking cool. At the shows I went to, he played with The New Regime, totally dig it. And then he would switch gears, and he would go play drums for the Angels and Airwaves set. And actually, Ilan, being such a cool fucking guy, he would be the first one to the merch booth right afterwards just to greet fans, say what up, take pictures, sign records, anything he could. He's just a really fucking cool guy. And I hope we can talk with him at one point. He has a fascinating background, fascinating story. He actually took drum lessons from Travis Barker when he was young, so it's crazy how all that worked out. But anyways, he has released 3 different EPs leading up to this big album. So the album is called Heart, Mind, Body, and Soul. It comes out on March 6th. There are already 3 EPs. One is called Heart, one is called Mind, one is called Body, with 4 songs each that he's been basically releasing every 2 to 3 months leading up to this. I really dig these. If you're looking for some new music to check out right now, check out The New Regime, even if it's just to give Ilan a chance. From what he brings to Angels and Airwaves and everything he's done for Tom and AVA, check out the dude's work. I really dig it. Some of the songs are just so groovy. There's one that I just cannot get out of my head. It's just stuck in my head. It's called It's Gonna Be Okay. So if you're going to check one out, check that song out. It's really cool. So again, March 6th, The New Regime, Heart, Mind, Body, and Soul. It's affiliated with Angels and Airwaves, so I thought I'd throw it in there. Definitely looking forward to that. All right, that is going to wrap up episode number 3 of 182 News. Really appreciate your guys' support, making me a part of your day. If you want to give me a follow, I am at Poppin' Curbs. Please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. I really appreciate it. I will catch you guys next time, where I think we're going to have a pretty cool interview. See ya.